Very good.
I'm on.
Let's open. Yeah. Let's kind of hang them a little bit. What is the ask?
We are asking that, well, first we want to recognize this is a significant day for all of our organizations. Every one of our organizations had a vested interest in that decision and the significance of that decision. And I think we're here, and it's certainly a significant moment for all of us as we continue to uphold those tenets of liberty, justice, and the right for education and equal opportunity that's guaranteed to us by the Constitution and even the Declaration of Independence. We're asking the president to do what he can capably do, and that's to share his message of how he has helped the Black community and how he continues to provide great guidance not only internationally but even here in the United States about our need for a recognition of the economic challenges that are there, but what his administration has been doing to help us. We're here to help provide a message to him that we're here to advocate for that positive message for the outcomes. I'm sure my other colleagues have other things to share as well.
And I think what our responsibility to do is, after he shares with us his message, we share that message with our team so that we can galvanize our groups to move forward.
What have you been hearing from some of your members about sort of recent headlines in the news related to student protests? We know there are alumni of Morehouse College, for example, that took issue with the president coming there to deliver the commencement. What are you hearing from some of the members of your organization, and what message did they send you here to carry to this president?
Well, we know that there are concerns. This is a very complicated matter, certainly one that this generation and the newer generation and older generations have maybe sometimes a differing view. But I know that we as leaders are here to educate our membership on what the facts are, trying to help rally us and find a place where we all can at least coexist when we have differing opinions. It's much like we deal with internal issues and challenges. We're not frightened by the issues. I know that when we talk about the need for us to move, we've heard the president make urges towards ceasefires and things of that nature. So we know he's trying to work on those situations and challenges that face us internationally. But we are also here to educate our membership who want to see different things in our younger generations. But it's still a work in progress, and that's the way the dynamics of organizations seem to be. Anyone else want to comment?
Yeah, I would say the other thing that we're hearing is just making sure that students have the rights and others have the right to peaceful protest. But I'll be honest, the thing I'm hearing is really about, we know that there's a lot of focus now on the situation in Gaza, but we also know that there's so many other situations all around the world, in the
Ukraine,
in the Sudan, yes, in Ukraine, and so really wanting to make sure that we can have the focus that we need on those areas, but at the same time making sure that we can continue a strong domestic agenda, because we know that there are people, quite frankly, who look like us, who are suffering every day. We know there have been a lot of improvements in terms of reduction in child poverty and a number of other things that I'm sure we'll talk to the president about. We know that there's a lot more work to do.
And our organizations are, what makes our organizations very unique compared to many other organizations in the country is that we are a multi-generational organizations, right? And then we also have chapters literally around the world. So when we talk about the challenges and issues that are happening, like we said, whether it's in Africa, whether it's in the Middle East, whether it's in Europe, we literally have chapters in all these places. And so, those interests and what happens there matters to us. And then when you talk about our younger students and the ones who want to have the right to protest, and this is no different than what they did in the Vietnam War. This is no different than what they did during World War I and II. This is who we are as a nation and as a country. And I think that this administration has a responsibility to make sure that the right to protest never gets taken away. But while at the same time we understand that these issues are complex, we want to make sure that the issues that impact our communities is here in America also is bubbled up to the top for the president to address. And we've been informed of all of the things that the administration has done. But we have a responsibility to make sure that we share that with our members. But we also want to know what's the path forward, because in the next 4 years, what's next? And that's important as well. And we want to make sure that we take that message, to our membership that eventually goes down to the lowest levels in our communities.
And building on that, what's really a great opportunity for us now that we have additional messages about what this administration is doing. Most of our members want to know that one radio station, WFIN, what's in it for me? How does this affect my life on the ground? How does this affect me going to school, having access for senior care, being able to get an education? These are the things that matter to our members, and they want answers. So as the leaders of our organizations, it's our responsibility to communicate the answers we get today, but in partnership, a broader conversation about how everyone has same access, equity for the work that we do, and the justice that all of us are afforded and should be afforded here in this country.
After the Supreme Court struck down affirmative action, we see on so many different fronts the funding for HBCUs is also at risk. We heard the president announce the $16 billion in funding today, but we've seen the court strike down Roe v. Wade and affirmative action. Are you nervous at all that they could also come for Brown? What is the plan that the Divine Nine has for addressing these issues?
Well, I'll start us off by saying that we're not afraid of the fight. We've been fighting since we were founded back in 1906 and respective years after that. That is our vested interest. We have been protesting and making sure that we have equity, equality as citizens in this country. And that is a part of even why the National Pan-Atlantic Council formed, to be a rallying point so that we will continue to move our social and our political and our ability as citizens of this country to the forefront and can rally together. We're united in that. Policies go up and down constantly. But we have faith and we are committed to the fight. That we're going to fight for the advocacy for historically black colleges and universities, but to fight for individuals to be able to go to college, to get an education, be able to get funding and support for that. And that's a war, but this is a battle. And we're going to win the battle, and we're committed to that.
Just as a follow-up to that, would your fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha, would the Pan-Hellenic Council support codifying Brown v. Board of Education? Perhaps a lesson learned related to Roe v. Wade, where that wasn't codified, and now we have this hodgepodge of laws across the country.
Of course, we stand, and I believe that the other presidents here would agree that we would fight for the codification of Brown v. Board of Education. However, I want to remind you that policies go up and down, but our internal resolve individually as organizations, but our power together, we are stronger together, and we recognize that. And that's why we're here today to say that we advocate for equity for all citizens. We talked about the right to protest. We want the right for folks to have the right to express themselves, younger generation, older generation. But at the end of the day, is that determination that we have, we are committed to the uplift of our people as a country and our community, in particular the black community. I think we can say that.
I just want to add one thing, just from the standpoint, you are asking about Brown versus Board of Education, and we know this is a historic day, 70 years later. But one of the things to think about is, I think we're still really focusing on the promise. It was the premise of Brown, but now the promise to really make it a total reality. That's really still happening. So when you ask about the codification, we know that there's so much at stake. There's that at stake for Brown v. Board, their voting rights at stake. And so we are all very, very passionate about the right to vote. And the laws that are there, we not only saw affirmative action before that, we saw Shelby versus Holder when the Voting Rights Act was gutted, basically. And so really to have laws that can protect those things for the future versus right now, I feel like we're behind the 8 ball. But Brother Lonzer is right. Since we were founded, we've always been behind the 8 ball. But we've always continued to fight for the issues that are so critical, not only to our communities, but quite frankly to the entire country. We are all better if these laws can be codified and on the books. But it's we know we have a fight in front of us, but we are ready for the fight.
And that's the show of forces today, right? It's to show that, number one, these historic organizations are banding together because the fight cannot be done alone. When we talk about Brown versus Board of Education, you talk through the fact that there are us gathering here today is to send a message that we see you. We see those who are trying to dismantle what has happened in this country over the last 70 years, but we also are sending a message to our members and all of those individuals who will be, future members, that you join these organizations to be a part of the greater good. That coming together and fighting for the rights of all people requires us to be strategic in our gathering, our messaging, and making sure that we send a message to those who are on the other side. We see what you're doing, and we're going to organize as well, and we're going to make sure that at the end of the day, that every child in this country has the opportunity to get educated the right way. And when you talk about HBCUs and the importance of them, even more so today than ever before, if you have a system that's trying to not educate a segment of this population of this nation on the history of this nation, then HBCUs become even more important today, right? Because then we become the vanguards of that. And it's important that we make sure that the funding is there, that it's not considered second rate to go into an HBCU. And some of the leaders of our organizations today are HBCU members. Many of the leaders in this country have gone through historically black colleges and universities. We want to make sure that not only do they get the funding for future generations, but that we are in place for years and years to come, because it's needed, because there are individuals who are trying to dismantle the work that is being done in this country.
So
And
in
I'd
order
like to-
to make that work, in order to make all of that work, and the reason we're here is we have to show that we are an important voting bloc. So that means if we're an important voting bloc, you've got to see us and understand where we're coming from. And then, yes, we understand we have to share with our constituents, and our young folks are the key ones. So that education and understanding what's in it for you and how it's going to impact you in the future. That's why we have to be here. That's why we have to make sure that our message is shared.
And I would just want to add one thing on this topic. When we talk about the importance and what does it mean, here's a great example of why you have to vote. Some people are disenfranchised. They don't want to engage in our civic system anymore. But when you're not a part of the process, you are now the recipient of the problem. Because if you're not putting the right people in office who get to make decisions on who sits on the bench, that is ultimately what we have to live with when we don't exercise our right to vote. So we want all of our members to know, as we've always done, being engaged, these are the reasons why and how it impacts our communities when we don't vote. So voting is an absolute, not just right, but obligation of every member of our organization.
Let me say one last point. If you look across all these organizations, we were founded on HBCU campuses, the majority of us, right? So we have a right we have to fight. Our founders would make us want to fight. They fought back in the early 1900s. So it's important that we're here in Washington, D.C., down the street from Howard University, where a lot of us was founded. It's important that we come and fight. That's why we hit the White House. And the president knows that's what we need to do.
Last question. Listening to you, it seems like there's an anxiety about whether young people are going to come out to vote. We've heard that from this White House, from Democrats in particular. Can you speak to that? Are you nervous about whether young people are going to sit this election out? And, you're also here at this White House. They're looking at the same polling that you guys are. They've seen the former president make real inroads with young voters of color. Do you think that former President Trump is making inroads with young voters of color? Why is that?
First, to your point about anxiety, there's always anxiety about people voting. That has been in every election that I can recall, and I've been voting since 1984.
So this is the same?
It's the same in the sense that we have to continually educate each generation about the significance of why they have to vote, and not just in presidential elections, but in every election. That is a part of our rite of passage, if you will, to be leaders within our own respective communities. And as far as the inroads with, in terms of the former president versus President Biden, I believe that the media, and there's a lot of false narratives, true narratives that are out there. There's a mix. But the reality for all of us, and I think my other colleagues will speak momentarily, is for us to talk to each of our organizations, but particularly the communities that we support. And that's where us being united as an organization in UPHC and being unified in the importance of being educated to go and vote. Not for whom you should vote, but that you should exercise your right to vote. That's right.
The most important thing, you asked the question about the anxiety, and I agree. There is always anxiety. But the point is around the message, especially as we look at our younger people, to understand, again, what's at stake. how is my life either better
That's
or
right. That's right.
what is it staying? Not, the big words about what it is, but breaking it down to what does this mean to me? What does this mean if I'm a 17-year-old or an 18-year-old? What does this mean to me? What is at stake if I vote? What is at stake if I don't vote? And we know that there is a lot at stake if people do not exercise their right to vote. So we want to make sure.
So, I'm a mother.
The economy. The economy.
The economy. I'm a mother of a millennial and a Gen Z. So we have a lot of heated conversations in our house because they have very opinionated focus points that are important to them. And when we have the discussions, I leave space and my husband leaves space for them to share their ideas. But ultimately, they want to know how their life, as my sister president said, is going to be better later on. But how much are you interacting with us now? They just don't want to see politicians when it's time for election. How are you building community? How are you getting to know your constituents so you can be keenly aware of what we need? And that's from the top down and the bottom up. So those are the answers that they want. I don't believe in anxiousness. I believe in speaking words to power. So we're going to speak to our organizations and our young affiliates because all of us have youth groups that we mentor and that we work with, and they get engaged in the process of learning what civics really means and how their vote is something that they do as soon as they turn 18.
And that's why this meeting is important. Because the president needs to let us know what has this administration done. And then we need to take that messaging back to our members and let them know this is what they've done. And then also at the same time, let us know what does this administration plan to do if they are elected for another 4 years? Because we're in an economy right now that is not as, for some individuals, they're still not feeling some of the policies that have been passed and has gone all the way down to the lowest levels. How can we make that better? And so we have an obligation to make sure that we get that messaging to our members. And again, that range from the ages of 17, 18, all the way up to 100 plus years old.
But we also have to look at young people in kind of different buckets. So if you have a bucket of those who are just out into the workplace and the work field, they're still feeling I can't get any further because I'm paying back school loans, student loans. So I think that is a positive thing. We can push that. We got to get them through that. So they've got the education, they need those loans paid. Then you got to look at that other up and coming group. Their minds are a little bit different. They're not sure if they need to go out and vote. So we got to understand and be very clear on why they need to go out and vote, why you need to have a voice, how that's going to impact you, whether it impacts how you look, whether it impacts your right to control your body. All of those pieces I think are important, but we've got to get that message out. And that's the things we're working on for our young folks.
And it's
Right.
helpful that we're multi-generational. So we have members that, started at 16 and 17 if they're already in school, but mostly 18, 19 plus, to your point, to over 100. But getting those trusted voices, we go so far, but our young members, we have members in their college that are on all of our boards. So we have leaders as well as, the leaders in all of our chapters that are all over the world who can really help to get the message out to the demographic that looks like them. And that is what is absolutely critical.
You heard about the question about the anxiety piece. As long as you heard the common theme from all the presidents, it's all about education. Educating our members, educating our young folks exactly why it's important to vote. I think once we start educating them and having them understand why the importance of it, I think the anxiety level will go down. But it's up to us as the leaders of our organization to make sure that we teach and we advocate on our communities why it's important to vote, what's at stake. So again, anxiety, I think will go down as long as we stick with educating our communities and our families.
And regardless of whatever the anxiety is, we collectively have accepted the responsibility that the education piece is ours, right? Because of who we represent, because of the numbers of our organizations, and then when you multiply that by the people that we actually have an opportunity to impact and influence, we've accepted the responsibility that it doesn't matter what demographic, it doesn't matter what information they need, we will be the gatherers, which is why we're here together collectively, and we will be that educating force so that people understand and know what's at stake and what impacts them, and give them the opportunity to go and make an informed decision when we enter into the election.
We reach millions of people.
I just want to say that I think it's also important that we recognize the fact that the electorate in the country is dealing with life, family matters, things that are important to them. So they forget about milestones and significant contributions made by this administration that have been helpful. Maybe, like we reflected earlier, may not be able to be felt immediately right now. But that's part of our role, and that's why when we stand united as the 9 organizations with a united approach to educate our members, to continually uplift the communities we support, we're going to help them to understand where we are and really be an advocacy, not just for President Biden, but really for a system of living that they will enjoy and that really reflects the morals and the values that America touts. It makes us a standout on the planet because of the significance of when we travel, we realize that our country is not so bad at all when we think about the liberties that we have, but we also recognize the threat that's there, and that's where we're willing to fight to make sure that we can stand our ground.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Get in the picture.
Yeah. Get it. Get it.
Come on.
Take it.
Jeff, go ahead to another one. Okay. Right here. 3, 2, 1. Couple more. Let's place it. I'm sorry. All right. 3, 2, 1.